Scorpio, has this month felt heavier than usual, like you've been walking through a fog no one else seems to notice? Moments of silence louder than words, people drifting away without warning, and emotions rising from places you thought you'd already buried. If this resonates with you, it's not a coincidence. This month wasn't just part of the calendar. It wasn't just another cycle passing through. It was a mirror, a test, a sacred invitation. You see, the universe doesn't just send energy, it targets. And this time, it targeted you. Not because you were weak, not because you were lost, but because you were ready. Ready to remember what you came here to do. Ready to face what you've been avoiding. Ready to walk through the fire and emerge as something greater. This is not just about astrology, it's about alignment. About truth, about the moment your soul whispered, now. So if you've been asking yourself, why is this happening to me? Let's shift the question. What if this month was never happening to you? But for you, what if this is the month you finally remember who you are and why you've always been different? Because Scorpio, this month didn't choose everyone, it chose you. And now it's time to uncover the truth behind why. Part 1. The shift in the sky, why the energy targeted Scorpio. Sometimes we think our pain is personal, but Scorpio, not this time. This time, something larger was at work. Have you felt it? That strange magnetic pull this month, as if the universe itself was turning its head in your direction, as if the energy wasn't just happening, it was aiming. There's a reason for that, and it's written in the stars. This month brought a celestial shift, unlike most others, one that pierced directly into Scorpio's core. Not softly, not gently, but with surgical precision meant to awaken the deepest parts of you. Whether it was a full moon in your opposite sign, or Pluto, your ruling planet, stirring in retrograde, the sky didn't whisper this time, it roared. It called out your name through chaos, through silence, through change you didn't ask for, but needed more than you realized. And here's the truth. This month was never about destruction. It was about alignment, sacred, messy, undeniable alignment. Because the stars saw something in you that maybe you forgot. Your soul is not ordinary. It was never designed for a straight path or an easy journey. It was made to transform again and again until all that's left is truth, depth, and power. That's why the energy shifted through you, not around you, because only Scorpio can survive the storm and become it. Every breakdown, every spiritual echo this month, they weren't punishments. They were activations. They were signs that your frequency was rising too fast for anything fake to hold on. So if it felt like people disappeared, if it felt like nothing was stable, if it felt like your inner world was collapsing, it's because the universe was making room for what your higher self dared to ask for. You didn't come here to float. You came here to transform the frequency of every room you enter, to see through illusions, to unearth truth no matter how uncomfortable. And this month, the universe remembered that. So it sent the storm to remind you, because when Scorpio forgets their power, the stars move to make them remember. Life lesson of part 1. When the energy intensifies, it's not chaos, it's calibration. You're not being attacked, you're being prepared. Part 2. The crisis you didn't expect was your soul test. Let's be honest, Scorpio, you didn't see it coming. Maybe it was a message that shattered your peace. Maybe it was a silence that hurt more than words ever could. Or perhaps it was a deep sense of being abandoned by people, by life, maybe even by spirit itself. You weren't prepared. You thought this month would be calmer. You told yourself, I've already been through enough. And yet, something cracked. But what if that crack was never a failure, but an opening? Because here's what nobody tells you about soul-level transformation. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait until you're ready. It chooses the moment your resistance is highest, because that's when your truth is buried the deepest. The crisis that found you this month, the argument, the loss, the ending, the confusion was not chaos. It was a threshold, a spiritual exam your soul scheduled before you were even born. You see, in the contracts we write with the universe, there are moments where we must prove what we claim we've learned, not through words, but through choices made in pain, through presence in discomfort, through clarity in emotional fog. This was one of those moments. You may have wanted peace, but your soul wanted growth. You may have wanted comfort, but your destiny needed clarity. And so the test came dressed as heartbreak, delay, disappointment, or even betrayal. But Scorpio, listen closely. You passed more than you realize, because the old you, they would have lashed out. They would have shut down, built walls, pulled the blade. But this time, you paused, you observed, you felt the fire, and you didn't run from it. Even if you doubted yourself, even if you collapsed for a night or two, you stayed present. And that, Scorpio, is evolution. That's what made this month so defining. It revealed your maturity, not in victories, but in how you stood through what cracked you open. Because the universe didn't want to break you, it wanted to reveal you. And only through the crisis could you remember that nothing outside you has power over the truth that lives within. Life lesson of part 2. Sometimes the test is not whether you win or lose, it's whether you can stay awake, while everything inside you begs to numb out. Part 3. When the universe made you stop and listen. Scorpio, there's something sacred about silence, but only when you're ready to hear what it's been trying to say all along. This month wasn't just chaotic, it was strangely quiet in all the wrong places. The calls stopped. The invitations didn't come. Even your usual distractions, the ones you used to escape your emotions, felt flat, empty, meaningless. That wasn't failure, that was divine interruption. The universe didn't remove noise to punish you, it removed noise to give you space. Because there was a message trying to reach you, but it couldn't get through while you were rushing. It couldn't land while you were overworking. It couldn't speak while your mind was screaming for certainty. So the universe whispered through stillness. And maybe that stillness felt unbearable. Because let's be honest, you're no stranger to solitude, Scorpio. But forced stillness, that's a different kind of torment. It makes you face the ghosts you've buried beneath your ambition. It strips away your control, and in its place it gives you nothing except your truth. That's the part nobody warns you about. When spirit wants to realign you, it doesn't always send signs. It sends silence. Because silence is a mirror, and when Scorpio looks into it, they see what others run from: wounds, truths, old betrayals still echoing, dreams deferred, the version of you that almost made it but didn't. But in that mirror, you also see your power, the rawness, the resilience, the sacred rage that knows how to transmute pain into purpose. And that's why the universe made you stop, not to paralyze you, but to position you, to align you with a timeline that requires your full awareness, to strip away the noise so your soul's compass could recalibrate, to force you to hear yourself again. Because, Scorpio, you've been carrying everyone's emotions, everyone's expectations, everyone's shadows. But this month, the universe pulled the brakes and whispered, "What about you? What do you feel when the room is empty? What are you craving when there's nothing left to prove?" Life lesson of part 3. When the universe silences the world around you, it's not abandonment, it's alignment. Only in the quiet can you finally hear what your soul has been trying to say. Part 4. The emotional flashbacks were clues. Scorpio, there's something you haven't told anyone, something you've been feeling this month but haven't quite been able to explain. Random memories showing up out of nowhere. The scent of someone from your past floating in at 2 a.m., a song that used to mean everything suddenly appearing again. And most of all, emotions you thought were buried rising like a tide you couldn't hold back. You probably asked yourself, why am I thinking about this again? Why now? I already healed this, didn't I? But here's the truth. You didn't imagine it. And no, you're not regressing. You're remembering, not for nostalgia, but for release. These weren't just emotional flashbacks. They were clues, keys sent by spirit to unlock something deeper. Because Scorpio, there were pieces of your story you survived, but never fully processed. You buried them under strength, under silence, under the false belief that if I don't feel it, it can't hurt me. But trauma doesn't disappear. It waits. It hides in the nervous system. It weaves itself into your decisions, your fears, your reactions to love, to loss, to opportunity. This month, those flashbacks weren't setbacks. They were the final echoes of pain you're now strong enough to face and let go of. Maybe it was an old betrayal, a moment someone made you feel small, or a time you gave your heart and it wasn't enough. Whatever it was this month, it surfaced not to wound you, but to free you, because Spirit knew that the next chapter of your life cannot be written on a foundation of suppressed emotion. And so the faces, the voices, the random tears you couldn't explain, they were messengers. Each one arrived to ask, "Are you ready to feel this?" So you never have to carry it again. You don't have to relive it. You just have to acknowledge it. Because Scorpio, you are not broken because you remember. You are healing because you finally can. Life lesson of part 4. Emotional flashbacks aren't setbacks. They are soul invitations to close chapters still echoing in your energy. You don't move forward by forgetting. You move forward by finally facing what couldn't speak before. Part 5. Why someone was removed from your life. Scorpio, you didn't want them to leave. Not like that. Not so suddenly. Not without closure. Not without the goodbye your heart quietly begged for. But they left anyway. And maybe it wasn't a breakup. Maybe it was a friend who vanished. A connection that slowly dissolved. Or someone you loved deeply who just changed like a stranger wearing a familiar face. Whatever form it took, someone was removed from your life this month. And it left behind a silence louder than any goodbye could ever hold. Here's the truth. This wasn't abandonment, it was intervention. Because while you saw the connection through the eyes of loyalty, the universe saw it through the lens of vibration. And something wasn't aligned anymore. Maybe they weren't bad. Maybe you weren't wrong. But the bridge between you was built on a frequency that no longer serves the path you're walking now. And so, Spirit stepped in. It didn't ask for your permission, it honored your higher self's request. You see, Scorpio, your growth this month was too sacred to be entangled with energy that pulls you back into an older version of yourself. And while your human heart felt grief, your soul felt relief. Because your intuition knew long before your heart admitted it, they weren't walking beside you anymore. They were standing still while you evolved. The universe, in its wisdom, removed them not to punish you, but to protect you. To protect your peace, to protect your timeline, to protect the person you're becoming. This isn't the first time you've outgrown someone quietly, but this time, you didn't even need to fight. The separation came naturally or suddenly, but perfectly aligned with your elevation. Because Scorpio, you were not meant to carry the weight of everyone's delay. You were not born to shrink just to keep others comfortable. This month, Spirit showed you the truth. If they were meant to stay, they wouldn't feel so distant in your soul. So instead of asking, why did they leave? Ask what part of me needed to be free from this bond in order to rise. Life lesson of part 5. Letting go is not always a choice. Sometimes it's a rescue. When someone walks away without explanation, it's often because your evolution started speaking louder than their comfort. Part 6. The realignment of your true purpose. Scorpio. There's a kind of discomfort that doesn't come from heartbreak, but from misalignment. And this month, you felt it, didn't you? Not just sadness, but restlessness. The sense that what used to satisfy you, now feels shallow. The goals that once lit you up now feel distant, even irrelevant. The path you were walking suddenly looked unfamiliar, like it belonged to someone else. That wasn't confusion, that was realignment. Because when your soul outgrows your current reality, it sends signals. Not always loud, Sometimes just a quiet ache. An inner voice saying, "This isn't it anymore." You weren't being ungrateful. You weren't failing. You were simply waking up to a purpose deeper than what your current life was reflecting. That's why this month felt so disorienting. Your spiritual GPS was recalculating. The universe was peeling back layers of roles, expectations, and even dreams that no longer belong to your evolved vibration. And in that space between what was and what will be, you felt the tension. Because, Scorpio, your purpose isn't just about what you do, it's about what you carry, what you transform, what you ignite in others just by being you. And the universe knew you couldn't keep dimming that. You couldn't keep settling for paths that require you to shrink, compromise, or pretend. That's why things unraveled. That's why clarity didn't come right away. Because realignment begins with emptiness. It strips away the noise so you can hear what's true. It pauses your momentum so you stop following old maps. It brings you to your knees not to break you, but to reintroduce you to your power. This month you weren't lost, you were being redirected. And maybe your calling won't be loud. Maybe it's not some massive career shift or spiritual title. Maybe it's the decision to speak up when you'd normally stay silent. To create when you feel afraid. To love with intention, not fear. To say, "This is who I am, and I'm not hiding anymore." Because that is purpose. To live as the most unapologetic, aligned, spiritually charged version of yourself, regardless of who understands. Life lesson of part 6. Purpose isn't always found in success. Sometimes it's found in the moment you realize you've been living someone else's dream. This month, the universe hit reset so you could finally begin your own. Part 7. The return of the hidden gift within you. Scorpio, there's a part of you that the world hasn't seen in a long time. A side of you that once burned so brightly, but over time, you buried it beneath responsibilities, fear, betrayal, and the need to simply survive. But this month, it began to return. Maybe it came as a creative spark out of nowhere, a vision, a dream, a surge of empathy so deep it made you cry for people you hadn't thought about in years, or a moment when your intuition was so sharp it scared even you. This wasn't a coincidence. This was the return of a sacred gift, one you were born with but learned to silence. Because the truth is, your gift scared people. Your intensity confused them. Your knowing, your unexplainable ability to see behind words, behind masks, behind lies was often labeled as too much. So over the years, you dimmed it. You tried to be normal. You tried to blend in, to not see so much, feel so deeply, sense things before they happened. But Scorpio, that was never your truth. And this month, the universe finally said, no more hiding. Because the world doesn't need more numbness. It doesn't need more polite silence. It needs your vision, your intuition, your depth. It needs the version of you that can walk into a room and know what no one else is willing to say. The version of you that transforms pain into poetry, that turns betrayal into power, that channels darkness into healing light. This month cracked open the part of you that had been whispering, "Let me out again," and you may have felt overwhelmed. Maybe you cried for no reason, felt energy in your body that didn't belong to you, woke up knowing things no one told you. That's not madness, that's your gift awakening. Your soul remembered what it came here to do, to feel what others fear, to see what others deny, to alchemize what others destroy. This isn't about becoming something new. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be before the world made you doubt it. This gift, whether it's in your art, your voice, your healing hands, your quiet presence, is not for everyone to understand, but it is yours to honor. Because Scorpio, when you stop apologizing for your magic, you become unforgettable. Life lesson of part 7. Your gift never left you. It simply waited until your soul was strong enough to carry it without shame. This month, you didn't just remember it, you reclaimed it. Part 8. The call to forgive what you never understood. Scorpio, there's a pain you've carried for too long. Not because you're weak, but because no one ever gave you an explanation. No reason, no closure, no apology. Just silence, a wound without a witness, a betrayal without warning, a goodbye that didn't feel like an ending, more like a disappearance. And you've spent years asking, why did this happen? What did I do to deserve this? How could they leave, lie, abandon, forget, without a word? But this month, something changed. Not because they came back, not because they gave you the answers, but because your soul grew tired of carrying the weight of waiting for understanding, waiting for someone else to make it right, waiting for the closure you thought you needed to heal. The truth is, Scorpio, some things will never make sense, not in this lifetime, because they weren't meant to be understood. They were meant to teach you how to free yourself without justice. And that's the sacred power of this month. It whispered to you. You don't need to understand it to forgive it. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the ultimate form of spiritual authority. It says, I don't need to keep bleeding for what someone else couldn't hold. I don't need to curse the storm, I can learn to walk through it. I don't need to hate you to finally love me. This month you were invited to lay something down, a grudge, a memory, an unanswered question that haunted you like a ghost. And in that moment of emotional surrender, you realized forgiveness was never about them. It was always about freeing the parts of yourself still trapped in that old timeline. You don't need to excuse the hurt. You don't need to pretend it didn't change you. But you also don't need to stay there, because holding on to pain doesn't protect you. It just prolongs the illusion that you're still not whole. But you are, even with the scars, even without the answers. This month was about choosing peace over proof, freedom over fairness, healing over haunting. Life lesson of part 8. Forgiveness isn't about accepting what happened, it's about refusing to let it define you any longer. You don't have to understand why they hurt you to stop hurting yourself by holding on. Part 9. The hidden blessing in what didn't happen. Scorpio, sometimes the most powerful shift isn't in what shows up, but in what doesn't. This month you may have felt disappointment. That message didn't come. That opportunity fell through. That person didn't choose you. The timing didn't align, and you were left wondering, why? What else do I need to prove? Am I being blocked? But the truth is more sacred than that. You weren't being blocked, you were being protected, because what didn't happen was never meant to carry your frequency forward. It might have looked good on the surface, but beneath it, something wasn't clean, wasn't solid, wasn't aligned with the version of you rising now. And the universe, in its fierce, loving precision, stepped in just in time. You see, Scorpio, there are things that look like blessings from the outside but are actually cages. There are people who seem like soulmates but are really soul lessons in disguise. There are dreams that would have cost you your truth to maintain. So this month, Spirit whispered, not this one, not yet, not in this form. And yes, it hurt. Because you're passionate, you give your all, you hold visions with intensity, and when something doesn't land, it shakes your sense of direction. But what if this was the landing? What if this silence, this delay, this no, was actually the most divine yes you could have received? Because while you were mourning what fell away, what you couldn't see were the timelines that Spirit collapsed on your behalf. The betrayal you never had to endure, the burnout that never reached you, the toxic cycle you were spared from repeating again. Scorpio, you may never know what you were saved from this month, but trust you were. Because this wasn't rejection, it was redirection, a sacred detour into a path that honors your energy, your boundaries, your worth. And when the real blessing arrives, you won't have to chase it, force it, beg for it, or doubt it. It will fit your spirit like it was made from your own soul threads. Life lesson of part 9. Sometimes the greatest miracle is what didn't arrive. Not because you weren't ready, but because the universe loves you too much to let you settle for almost. Part 10. Why this month belongs to you. Scorpio, take a breath. Not just with your lungs, but with your soul. Because if you've made it this far through the silence, the breaking, the remembering, the releasing, then you've done something extraordinary. You didn't just survive this month, you answered it. You responded to a call that most people ignore, a call that didn't come through words but through energy, through emotion, through divine disruption. You see, this month wasn't about loss, it was about recognition. The universe recognized that you were ready to evolve without asking permission, ready to release without full explanation, ready to feel deeply and not run from it, ready to forgive what never made sense, ready to walk alone if it meant walking in truth. This month didn't break you, it returned you to yourself. And that's why it was always meant for you. Because Scorpio, not everyone is built for this kind of spiritual intensity. Not everyone can stand in fire and alchemize it into wisdom. Not everyone has the courage to look in the mirror when everything falls apart and say, I'm still here and I still believe. But you do. That's why the storms came for you, not to punish, but to crown you. That's why people left not to abandon, but to clear space. That's why old memories surfaced not to torment, but to liberate. This month wasn't random. It was sacred orchestration, a spiritual rite of passage, a cosmic initiation back into your deepest power. So as this month closes, don't just ask what you lost. Ask what part of me rose that I never saw coming, because you're not who you were at the start. And that's not a tragedy, it's a miracle. Final life lesson of the journey. This month didn't just happen to you, it was born for you. Because sometimes the universe chooses its strongest souls for its most precise work. And Scorpio, this time, it chose you. Conclusion. This was always your month. Scorpio, now that you've seen the truth, now that you've walked through every shadow silence and sacred shift, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what did this month truly teach me about myself? Was it strength? Was it surrender? Was it the courage to finally say goodbye, or the wisdom to stay still and listen? Whatever rose for you, don't ignore it. Write it, feel it, honor it. And if this message touched something inside you that words can't quite explain, know that you're not alone. You were never alone. This journey was written into your soul long before you arrived here. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. What moment from this month broke you open, and what did it reveal? Your voice might help someone else find theirs. And if you found truth, healing, or clarity in this space, subscribe to the Path to Buddha Wisdom, where Scorpio souls like yours are always seen, heard, and remembered. Until next time, trust the timing, honor the shift, and never forget this month didn't just happen, it was always meant to find you.